All right, welcome back to Afternoon Drive here on Joppa Radio. My name is Drew Moholland. Again, guest today, Bill Burt at the Eagle Tribune. How are you, Bill? First time on the show. It's good to have you here.
First time. It was a first time.
First time, long time? Yeah.
Last time, no. Yes, yes. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. It's glad we can make it happen.
I like freewheeling once in a while.
It is. It's good. Yeah, I said off the air here, I said, Bill, I think in my professional life, I haven't actually spoken with you. I do remember you covering my games back when I was in high school, which wasn't that long ago. But
yeah, good off the bench forward coming in. Yeah, you're a pretty good player.
I guess.
No,
yeah. But yes, things are good. So never a dull moment in the sports world. But let's ask you from a personal perspective, how are things at the paper? And
good. It's been since 1983.
Unbelievable.
Started right. I graduated from Merrimack College.
Yep.
And my first job was part-time at the newspaper. I was there about a year and a half, and had a full-time job. I was an economics major so I'll back even further. I grew up in Quincy for the most part.
Okay.
And two basketball players from the projects I grew up in were at Merrimack, so I came up to visit it, and it was between St. Mike's and Merrimack. Chose Merrimack, and literally since the fall of '79, I have either lived or worked in North Andover in this area after being a South Shore kid for most of my life.
Crazy.
So I've been there 35, started part-time, had a full-time job at Gray Bar Electric, was a financial manager, bored out of my sneakers. They were ready to, to be honest, I was a financial manager, basically giving out credit to, for the most part, it was communications, but it was electrical contractors. And would lend them money and basically lend them materials, and they'd pay the bills, and I'd make sure they get on time. And I didn't like it. I liked dealing with the people aspect of it.
Yeah.
And I was kept the job at the Eagle Tribune part-time. Full-time job opened up. Funny story how it opened up. The reporter who was at the Eagle Tribune full-time, I was part-time while working my full-time job. And I had to make a decision. I was either going to move to Hartford, Connecticut, and run 3 branches down there: Springfield, Hartford, and Hamden, Connecticut. And I was either going to do that or leave the business. And I either moved down there or I had to leave. And I kept putting it off for about a year. So Eagle Tribune, a reporter, one of our hockey reporters, goes to a game, and he sort of was into the Merrimack hockey and yelled at the referee as the referee came off as a fan. And then next thing you know, they were like throwing punches.
Oh, my goodness.
He gets fired. Position opened up. I didn't have to move to Connecticut. And so that's my career.
Did you ever keep in touch with that reporter?
No, that reporter, in fact, by the way, he's passed away.
Okay.
But God, love him. He was, in fact, he was a good guy, but things changed, opened up, and I did not get in this business because of my love of writing. It was sports.
Yeah.
And I met Russ Conway, who's, speaking of passed away last summer, a legend. And Russ used to come into the loft. I worked while I was in college. That's how I paid for my college. And I was there 2-3 nights a week, sometimes even longer. And he used to come in. I'd argue sports. Next thing you know, I had graduated, had a job that was taken away with the Mass Department of Revenue. Was supposed to start in June, graduated in May. The day before I was supposed to start, or Friday before, I get a call saying the position's been nullified. It was so I didn't have a job again. So I worked full time at the loft, then got the job part time at the newspaper when Russ said, "Hey, put your money where your mouth is. I need a reporter tomorrow to cover North Andover, Pentucket."
You remember the game, huh?
So funny story there is it was September 11th, which is September 11th, 1983.
Okay.
And the reason why that's an important day, 30 years later, I'm covering, I think it was 30 years later, or 24 years, I'm covering the World Series for the Eagle Tribune. And I'm in Cleveland. It was the ALCS. And I see up on the board, I see Jacoby Ellsbury, September 11, 1983, his birth date. And I said, that date just sounds familiar with me. And I end up go home 2 days later, I go up and on my desk is the first story I ever did, September 11, 1983.
Oh, wow.
So that's where it hit me. And then I showed Jacoby, he got a kick out of it. And it's been, since then, it's been a long ride. I will say a lot of ups and downs, more ups. I'm in a good position. I am editor. I've been sort of running the sports department for about 15 years plus.
Yep.
I've been a columnist. I get to travel a little bit. Why do we cover the World Series? Why do we cover the Super Bowl? Well, because we'd make money. The Eagles Tribune. I will tell you what. If we didn't make money, I would not be going to Super Bowls and whatnot. By making money, we'll do a special section. People want to read the stats. They want stories on Brady and Belichick. If I just breathe their names, advertisers will come in too. So it's been a good run, and this is the first January in a long time, and I mean a January because they were gone first week. It's 4 of the last 5 Super Bowls, and they're stressful. There's special sections, and there's a lot of work to do. So I've done a lot. I love local as much as I do like pro. The best stories are really local, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But I do enjoy going to the games too.
Is that was going to be one of my questions? Is there are you drawn more to the high school kid, the high school story, than the Belichick story, or are there pros and cons?
No, not so much drawn to it, except the stories. Like I'm working on a story now. Merrimack College woman. Merrimack College athletics have moved to Division I, and they're doing remarkably well. And one of the best players on the women's team, she's a senior from Dorchester, Mass. Her brother was shot, murdered, and just that story about her brother and what he meant to her. She didn't have a father growing up for the most part, and you don't get those stories with the professional guys. Yeah. And for me, I'm a story guy. I'm not a game guy. I go to games. I'm into stories. So I'd rather sit with someone, talk to them, and ask the kind of questions you're asking here. And oh, really? And then I have no idea where it's going, and sometimes it takes off. When I'm writing a story, I don't know ahead of time. Sometimes I'm writing a story, I think it's going to go one way, and I start writing, and it takes off another way.
Yeah, those are fun to do. I know you talked about the ups and downs. I think the downs of the newspaper industry are very public nationwide. Mm-hmm. What is the state of the Tribune right now, and local newspapers in general, I guess? Well, there's a lot of them around here.
Yeah, the local news is the way to go. I mean, to put it in, explain it, when we were purchased, we're talking for over $200 million, and that's all of our newspapers, and we're talking, 15 years ago. What that price is worth more what the Globe is worth today. Yeah. So it just lets you know the business is different. We ran, and I say we, the newspaper industry sort of ran the media outlet, really ran the media window for, almost a century. And now that's different. It's more electronic and, I mean, how old are you?
I am 33.
Okay, so 33, congratulations.
Thank you.
33 years old, I'm going to make the assumption you don't touch a newspaper. You'll look at your phone, you'll look at an iPad, and if you do look at a paper, you're extremely rare. And
my other job is in a newsroom. That's the only reason why I'm the exception.
And that's right. But anyone under 40, and I got it used to be 30. It used to be 40. It's like 45 now.
Yeah.
Don't touch paper.
It is true.
So we now have to figure out how to monetize the internet and the websites. So more people are reading my stories than ever. We're just not making the revenue, which was, quote unquote ridiculous. Yeah. The Eagle Tribune was probably one of the most profitable. I think we were the most profitable newspaper revenue percentage in the country. Wow. Like top 2 or 3 or 4. The Merrimack Valley is its own entity, and we owned it. Yeah. And things have changed. So we're still figuring that out. If we can, we will survive. Yep. And I'm talking the paper's going to drop eventually. Eventually, us 50-year-olds, 60s, until we pass, we still want our paper. Yeah. I still like it. But eventually, it's everything's going to be digital.
There is that crew. It's funny, though, because I am kind of old school in that way, where I enjoy still holding a newspaper and reading it. I know maybe I get it from my dad, who goes to the gas station every morning and starts, I don't know.
You're very right.
But there is that group that does, maybe it does go away at some point, and maybe it does all go digital. But there is something about just holding a newspaper and just seeing the whole thing, and above the fold and all that. It's just kind
of having a cup of coffee and
right?
sitting at a table. Like the Sunday paper is the one time I think people the 40. That's maybe a little older or a little younger will try it, but it's just not I have a son who's 23, and he does not touch paper, won't even go near it, and so that's another. And I think as an industry, and not just us, but we need to find ways where, other than just a high school, your team plays in high school, you want to read the story, they can do that on the web. But what can we do to make younger people read a newspaper, and we're still figuring that out.
And I'm guessing some of those demands are, well, social media and maybe videos. They have you. I'm sure you're doing a lot more of that these days, of taking your own video and taking your own pictures and
I like
posts.
doing that. Yes. Yeah. So I'll, even we'll go to the Super Bowl. I'll usually do 2 or 3 sort of comedy-based videos. I was in last year. We were in Atlanta, and it's the first time I had seen those little scooters, the electric scooters. And so I ended up, did a story on it, and I put a GoPro, which one of our reporters brought, and I drove through the city, and I almost got in 2 accidents, but it ended up got like over, a couple 100,000 hits because it was and goofy. And I'll do my interviews, and when we go to high school and college and pro events, we're taking video when we ask a question. So we're also asking, and we're also writing down answers and whatnot. So look, years ago it used to be easy. I'd go to a game, high school or pro. I'd go back to the newspaper quick, or we had cup links. We had these old system of sending stories, and once a story was sent, it's over. With the websites, it's never over. It's 24/7.
Yep.
You get information at 2 a.m. You got to wake up and throw it up, or someone has to do it. And it's a different industry, and you don't really get a break. Before the game, you got to tweet out some things. You got to blog.
Yeah.
You got to throw some stuff on the website. Then the game happens. And then you get extra stuff. You get comments. You get videos. It's harder. It's more.
You're doing more, right?
We're doing more. Oh God, we have 5 people compared to the 11 I had when I started. Yeah. And I'm guessing us 5 do more than the 11 did.
Yeah. That's pretty much the when you look at sports departments across the country, right? I mean, you're doing more with less, but that's technology we do talk a lot about in that way, where there's you're trying to throw a lot of stuff in different directions. In a lot of ways, though, it has made some things easier. Like I remember talking to a coach here one day, and he said, what is great? I can check on a score that's important just by it's on Twitter. A quick Twitter check away, and I suddenly know I don't have to call that department, see how they did, and work on scheduling. Like, it's kind of, there is that too, but it hasn't made everything for the worse. It's just kind of busier with all that stuff going on, right?
So it's exactly right. And I will say, part of I'll do some local events, and I'll go to an event, and people love the updates. But 3/4 of my Twitter audience is going, well, what are you saying? You're filling up my Twitter feed with this 16-14 score, Lawrence versus Andover. But so those are things we sort of have to weed through. But it's what it is? It's constant action. I like that. I got to be doing something. I'm a little hyper. I got ADHD, like probably 90% of all the guys out there. And I've got to be moving, or if I'm not moving, I'm doing nothing. And I'd rather move.
I hear you. It's I was just thinking, as I was saying that, I had Mike Lynch in that seat one day, the sportscaster from Channel 5, who just recently retired. And he said he was it was a Newburyport story once. He remembers trying to figure out, he said, you used to literally have to, Thanksgiving, call these, you'd be trying to find a score, and we're missing 3 scores. Got to call the police department. I call the fire department, and you get the officer Smith in the background. Johnny, did you get? They kicked that field goal in the final minute. I think they missed it. It was 27-14. Guys, can you settle on a score? Come on, I got to get it on.
We once got an ambulance. I had to get an ambulance driver who got me the score because he was at the game. Yeah, so that's what it used to be. Now, and we used to, Thanksgiving Day would have a line where people would call in with the scores and would update it, and it took like 40 minutes to set the line up, and now it's instant. So my theory is, game stories are sort of old news. So when the next day, I'm not saying there's a place for them, but I mean, most people that care about a game, they know about the result before they went to bed. Yeah. And they got it through Twitter or their kids or a parent. And so the next day, if they're not reading the paper, now we are a morning paper, we used to be an afternoon, but if people are, most people aren't reading for game information. So we got to think about what we're giving more tidbits of information that they wouldn't have got even if they were at the game. So that's the way we got to look at it. We got a little differently.
Tell me something I don't know, right?
You said it. In fact, that's our business. That's really what our business is about. Tell me something, and not tell me, show me something.
Yeah. Again, we're joined here by Bill Burt, sports editor over at the Eagle Tribune. He's been in it my whole lifetime, actually.
Yes.
It's pretty crazy to think about. That is an amazing run in your industry. You probably look around and you know the answer more than me, but there's very little stories like yours that have done it for this long.
Well, I will tell you, in sports, no. It's the one place in most papers, like Aden Shaughnessy. He's been there 30 plus years. Bob Ryan did it for 40 years. Yeah. it's changing. See, back when I grew up, this was and I say our business, but a lot of industries were safe, meaning you go there, you could work your career 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
Now it's different. Now it's 3 years. 3 years is a long time, and I do advise people, don't be afraid. And lo and behold, I've been 35 years at the same place. But that's our it is rare per se, but and it's changing because there won't be many more Bill Burts out there, I think, now. But there's still icons. We got Dave Dyer. He's been there 30 years. Hector Longo just left us, was there 32 years. Mike Muldoon is part-time. He was 34 years. So it's like you can't get rid of the sports writers are hard. It's a great, you know what it is? It's fun. Yeah. Money's okay. It's harder nowadays. I will say this. It's different. We're spread ourselves thin. There's all these internet jobs and website jobs, and they don't pay great to start. Like, I don't even know if I could survive. So I'm, if entering the business now, I probably might not have stayed long enough because I wouldn't have been able to raise a family per se.
It's interesting. And is there ever is there an element to it where, I mean, because I'm sure you remember those days, high school sports, they don't exactly cater to the perfect 9 to 5 schedule. I mean, you're up some late nights during the weeknight. You're giving away weekends a lot. Did that ever feel like a big drag, or what am I doing? I just need a Saturday to myself. This is killing my social life. Something like that back in the day.
So here's what I did. My first probably 7 or 8 years, I was Tuesday to Saturday.
Okay.
So think about that. Friday and Saturday nights worked literally for 7 years, 8 years.
Right. Yeah.
Then I got a little seniority, and I do one weekend night. Sometimes you do two.
So you're covering the high school football on Friday nights.
High school football or basketball or hockey or wrestling or working the desk, taking calls. It was harder back then. We would have guys, 4 guys, 5 guys in answering the phones. Now stuff can be stories and little box scores can be emailed, which are easier. We still have to code them up a little bit, but it's easier to get the information as well. But no, back when I started, it was so. I mean, it's interesting because I've only had one child, and I worked nights. My wife worked days, and we did that for a good 10 years early in my son's life. Then I became sports editor. For the most part, it's quote unquote a 9 to 5-ish job. But I during the football season, Sunday's an extra day.
Yep.
Do some travel. I went on the road a couple times, for like 4 times this year, and I would leave on a Thursday and work 7 days. Get up Monday, fly in Monday morning, go right to the office. And
do you like that? You like to travel?
Yeah, I do. I do. I don't as much.
Yeah.
No, I do like travel, but I'm stuck in a hotel writing. It's not really out. I did when I went to Philly. Patriots played that Sunday night game with Philly. I think it was. Was it Thursday? I don't even know. I forget. No, it was a Sunday night. And great night. But I went early and ran up the stairs. Did a little video of Rocky running up the stairs at the museum center there, and did a little story about being around Philadelphia. It was my first time really in Philly. I've been to Philly, a quick in and out, but I stayed for 3 or 4 days and went to Philly, went to their practice on Friday to get their angle. It's one thing I like doing. I like getting the other side, and I like to see what they think of us.
Yeah.
And it's been something I've been fascinated with. When teams come into Fenway, I will go in the other locker room and start asking, hey, what when you saw last time you saw Pedro, or last time you saw John Lester, what do you, and you get in. That's how you get some of your best stories are where, see, everyone's going that way. I like to go the other way.
Yeah. Anybody ever mentioned sign stealing from the other club hosts?
No comment on that. So, I have a son that plays baseball, and so he, he's in the minors, and it's a topic there.
He's in the minors. Oh, no.
Yeah, so I
knew that.
So he went to Northeastern, St. John's Prep.
Okay.
A dynasty in baseball.
Absolutely.
And then Northeastern, they had 2 very good years there, his last 2 years, and he played every day for 4 years, and then was drafted by the Yankees.
Wow.
Which is a whole another interesting topic. And this is his 3rd year, so he's been home all winter. He's leaving. In fact, I'm going to leave with him. We're going to go down to Florida.
Oh, nice.
And he's going to. So we're going all over the map. But briefly, he needs to get outside. He's been inside. He wants to see his ball fly instead of hitting nets. And but he's worked hard, and so through him, I've had a great experience. But I've understood the ups and downs of baseball, which is back to your original question, the sign stealing. When let me just put it this way: when you know when the pitch is coming, and it's really, and you're going to hear pitchers talk about this, and they've talked about it before. It's not the fact that the slider's coming, but it's you don't swing at it because you know it's a slider and it's low. What 90% of strikeouts are swinging at a ball outside the strike zone. And I did a story on Ryan O'Rourke, the pitcher at Merrimack College, who is still hanging around. He had pitched 7 great outings in a row with Minnesota, has one bad outing in Houston, and barrels or whatever might have been happening, and he got sent to the minors the next day after his one bad outing in Houston.
So when you hear people talk about jobs really at stake here,
so that, when you look at it like, hey, they were just stealing signs. No, lives are at stake, and jobs and career. I wrote the story a couple weeks ago, but he went down to Puerto Rico, and he has to play in Puerto Rico because he's got to build his resume back up.
Wow.
And I'm not saying he wasn't a stud or anything. He went to Merrimack. He's from St. John's, Shrewsbury. But the story is he's got questions because they weren't swinging at his best pitches that day. He remembered every pitch. And it's funny. So baseball, back to what my son has said, when I know a pitch is coming, I become an all-star.
Yeah, it is interesting. Marcus Stroman said the same thing. He was tweeting either today or yesterday, and he said, it's interesting. I was wondering how they were laying off my nasty slider, and that's true.
It's laying off. Yeah. It's not hitting. Now, there was George Springer, I think, in I don't know if it was this year or the last World Series. He had like an 0-2 slider for a home run. That doesn't happen. But it happened because he's,
they heard the trash can.
Two bangs. He knew it was a slider. So, but funny. I will tell you, it's cheating. It is cheating, and the fact that you're always trying to figure it out. I think it's great trying to steal signs, within quote unquote, legally. Yeah. You see pitchers tip things off, and I've learned through my son. He puts his glove down a little lower. That's a slider. A little higher fastball. That's things they're looking for. And he's done that in games. And he said it helps. I knew when the guy was throwing it, but it's legal. It's the pitcher's the knucklehead here.
Yeah.
A catcher putting his butt in the air when he's catching a slider, but he's down when it's a fastball. So there's little things you pick up as a baseball player. I've learned. And for me, it's funny. We're going to talk about all sports, but baseball for me has always been my favorite sport, me too, and my son as well. And it's all I love going to BP. I love watching people field. I like being outside. I love 80 degrees. Yeah. I used to love New England. I'm now I think I'm not a Floridian yet. Probably more like a North Carolinian.
Gotcha. What's your son's name?
Max.
So he's in 3 years in the minors, you said.
Yeah, this is his 3rd season in the minors.
It's I'll let you go into it a little bit, but it's a bit of a grind there in the minors. I know I had a buddy who did it after playing at Boston College for 4 years, and he did about 3, and he probably, from what I hear, he probably was going to make a run or at least get a shot at the show. And he ended up I gotta tell you, just the bus rides and just the meal tickets. It just got a little bit hard on me, and I wasn't committed enough.
Yeah,
you got to really be committed.
That's the word. And my son has friends. He knows people in the business. He knows kids that he's played with that say that they just don't have it. So they're gonna eventually drop out. Or their play is gonna fall because they're not all in.
Yeah,
doesn't affect like the bus rides. I haven't heard one complaint, meaning this is awful, this is tiring. At the end of last year, he was tired, and he said, I got nothing left, but I'm fighting. And then he had the best game the next day, meaning you find a way. But it is where it's April 1st in the minors till like the first week of September, and they won the championship in AA at Trenton. So he went, till September 16th, and that's a long time. A lot of baseball at the park every day at 1, get home at 11, and that's every single day.
Yeah, playing. Never mind, some days you're getting banged up, and
no, you're playing through injuries, and they lift 3 days a week. They lift after games sometimes. They lift in the morning when they're on the road. There's the bus rides are not great, but. You got to be. You look beyond the bus rides. You get close. You're in AA.
Yeah.
He was in AA. I don't even know if he'll go back there to start. It was more. He moved up for an injury. He was there for about a month and a half. But when you sniff.
Yeah.
You're playing with guys that are going to be. 5 of my teammates are going to be in the majors. You get a little. It pumps you up a little bit, and then this offseason's been great for him, and
cool.
I love. I show up at BP. I'll take some videos sometimes, like a helicopter. I'm still a helicopter dad, as well as a sports editor. So that's probably my number one job, other than being a husband.
There you go. So you can taste it. That's good. We wish him all the best.
Thank you.
I hope to see him someday there, Max. Speaking of baseball, since that's my favorite sport as well. Kind of unique for, I guess, my generation to say that. Everybody keeps telling me the game is dying. I don't quite see it. I mean, I know some of the numbers down, but I also read an article about revenues were through the roof this past year.
Right.
I still love the game. It seems like all of my buddies I grew up with love going into Fenway Park and watching games. I don't know. How is baseball? What's the state of the game?
Yeah, the problem is, again, the younger, the millennials, the younger kids, that the average fan isn't liking the game as much as the average fan before. And they do say it's too slow.
Yeah.
And I disagree with them.
Me too.
But if they say it's too slow, then it's too slow. We can say, I argue the newspaper industry for years just didn't listen to the customer. The paper's boring. It's old news, and no. This is the way it's going to be. We're not changing. And lo and behold, look at all the dailies and all the big dailies and all the big cities. They're struggling because they didn't listen. And the New York Times and the Globe, I think, are two of the biggest culprits. That being said, I think baseball, very similar, owned the landscape, owned it. Now it's NFL. And guess what? I think the NBA might have even have topped it. Though the NBA is going through some struggles this year too. And I'm an NBA fan. I like it. But for me, baseball, like a good baseball game, going or even watching at home. But I like a nice day, 75, 80 degrees, out eating some peanuts, having a beer, and soaking it all. There's nothing like it. And if you know the game, and I hate that sounds very condescending.
Yes.
And I think baseball's got to do a better job at teaching the interesting part of the game, which is everything that's going on. When nothing's going on, something really is going on.
Right.
Shortstop moves over 2 feet. Third baseman comes in a foot, and then the next pitch they move in different directions. So it's we have to do a better job. And I'm talking baseball people that love baseball at teaching others that the intricacies that for us are very interesting, at least make them mildly interesting.
Yeah, so I think and I agree. And now I know there's that 6-hour Sunday night baseball game that takes you to 1 a.m. Now I understand that's
the Red Sox Yankees. Yeah, right.
Sox Yankees game. That can be tough even for me. I understand that, but I do love. Don't put all these clocks on baseball. I don't. That's part of the fascination of it. Is there's no time here. This thing's gonna go 18 innings. It's gonna go 18 innings. Somebody's gonna win.
The one thing is in the minors they have the clock. And I will tell you,
that's the pitch clock, right?
Yeah, it's a pitch clock.
I don't mind that as much. Like I don't like I don't know. I guess I'm limiting all these trips to the mound. I guess that's a good thing too. I guess the pitch clock feels right. I mean, there's a lot of wasted time, but I don't know. When you start talking 6, is it really saving that much time?
Well, it's wasted time. You just said it. I don't mind a little step out, but it's like the 15-second step out and the arrogant step out. Like I'm going to sit here and do my hands 20 times. And it's the arrogance, and I want that gone.
Me too. I
like pitchers coming in, and for the most, I've never seen a violation. My son said, there was a violation yesterday, and I wasn't there for it. But the game just moves a little better. Yeah. I am impatient. I'm an impatient driver. I just want things. I want to hurry up.
Yeah.
I'm always in a hurry, even when I'm not in a hurry. I think baseball relaxes me a little bit, but I do like when the game. So we got to understand that's again the best part of the game. I think are the things people don't understand, and we just got to do a better job of letting them know that.
I agree. Again, we're joined here by Bill Burt of the Eagle Tribune, sports editor over there. We could talk about a million sports headlines right now. It's obviously Super Bowl is set now. Will you guys go down without the Patriots involved? Okay.
Probably. It could have been something I could have. I would say I'll use the word fought for. If it's a way we can, monetize it, it's worth doing. I've been to the last 4 of the last 5.
Yeah.
I was sort of thankful. After they lose, it's like, you know what? I really could use a January off because, the one thing, and Belichick talks about this every year, it's great going to the Super Bowl every year, but you fall a month behind in preparation for the next year. 12 or 16 teams or even 18 teams are already focused on next year. And they're already starting their scouting. They're going to some of these bowl games. And, their coaches are being hired for other jobs. And the Patriots till February, literally 6th or 7th, don't even touch for the most part. I know they'll do some, but don't touch that stuff. So I honestly believe, and for me, it's been a breath of fresh air, though we are doing a special section on all the great decade and the champions. We're going to do each of the 6 champions. We're going to do a story and some breakout boxes and do an interesting thing on that. We also have the 40th anniversary of Merkel on ice.
Oh, yeah.
And that to me is one of the greatest stories.
A lot of local guys around here.
Well, no, there are only 4.
Is that all that's?
Can you believe that?
Yeah.
Well, it was 5. Ralph Cox was 5. He was a star of the movie, one of the stars, but only 4 players from Boston. And but they were all focal point guys because they were all loud because we're obnoxious people around here. And all 4 of them were big personalities, including Ruzioni. February 22nd, I believe, is the anniversary of the Soviet game. So we got a lot going on. I got some stories I'm already trying to think of there. In our business, you sort of always got to look ahead. You have a big calendar out, and I need reminders, a buzzer. Hey, phone buzzes. I got this to do because we're so busy now, and you can be taken away from stories and things going on, important things.
I want to get back to Miracle in 1 second, but real quickly, what's it like covering a Super Bowl? You got every reporter from every network, from every little station, from every entertainment site. Is it madness in a way?
Yes, it's madness. It's very stressful. You're competing with not only you got the Boston papers there, and you want to write story. I'm very competitive, so I want to beat the Boston papers. I want to beat any paper. So, or even any news outlet. If they do an interview, I want to beat them. And so I'm always that's probably why I've been still doing this. Why I'm still going to Super Bowls. And I do like it, but it's a tough 2 weeks. Before we leave, we do a special section if they win, we do one post. And it's a lot. They're not easy. People just see them. I don't know if they read them, but they see them, and they look good. They always have colorful. It's great cover stuff. I'll do my Brady Belichick stories, but the Super Bowl week is literally the easiest day is Saturday. It's the day before the Super Bowl. Every other day is mayhem, and there's a media night like on Tuesday or Wednesday night. That's a fun night. Everyone rushes to get their stuff done and get free food and drink for one night. But for me, it's a stressful night. It's not a party time. I don't, go out with a couple of writers, have a couple beers, but we're up the next morning. Got to be there at press conference at 8:15. Then the second group is at 11, and you got to figure out what you're going to write. Sometimes it changes, So in my mind, there's a lot going on. When your team is not in it, it's easy. I was down at the best Super Bowl I ever covered. For me, the easiest was when it was New York against Baltimore. When the Ravens beat the Giants in
Joe
Tampa.
Flacco, yes.
No, this is in Tampa with it'll hit me the quarterback. He's Collins.
Oh, okay.
Collins. And I don't know where did Kerry go to school.
Kerry Collins went to.
It'll hit me. But so that Super Bowl, Trent Dilfer beats Kerry Collins. Worst Super Bowl,
Dilfer,
literally.
That's right.
The worst quarterbacking Super Bowl ever. But it was great. I just got one really good story a day and wrote like an in-depth story where I wasn't competing with anyone. I was just looking for the best story for our readers, and it was just that was enlightening. I had one of those Super Bowls. All right, that only happened once. I went to the Super Bowl. Pats lost with Green Bay in '96. I didn't go to the one with
Game
the
was
Bears.
Over quick.
Yeah, that was no. It was interesting for a while. Second half. It ended.
Was that the game that Desmond Howard ran back the opening kick?
He opening kickoff.
I think that's why I always think it was over early. Because it started bad, but they hung in there for
Patriots
a bit, right?
were tough for half, and then they got outscored like 14-0. It was like 34-21, I think the final. 35-21, they went for 2.
95.
It was the 95 season, 96 Super Bowl. Because Belichick, so Parcells left, 93, 94, 95, 96. It was the 96 season. Because Parcells left for New York. Yeah. And, so over the years, I've become, my favorite guy I ever covered was Bill Parcells. I probably got a little connection with Belichick because I was there, his first press conference. And, I think I'm the only writer still who's covered all of Parcells and all of Belichick.
Oh, wow.
So, I'm not down there every day, but I've been there for every home game and most of the road games and all the big games. So, and that's rare, but that's what happens. That's why you get white hair.
Is that you? That's funny. Is that unique when he? When he's had some serious news stories in, I guess, more recent years. Is that strange when you start seeing the news top anchor for some of these TV stations show up, and you just know that Bill is eyeing them and not going to answer that question and has that awkward moment?
He is. There's no one like him. Nobody like him. That's who he. No, those bland press conferences. I'm not even saying I'm good friends with them. I become friendly. I can get him alone if need be, if and when it comes up. But no, he is. That's who he is. He's a different cat. You ask him a question. If it's a question where you're trying to get information out of him, and it's, you'll ask a question and you'll get silence for that uncomfortable silence for 4 seconds.
Which he seseems way too comfortable
Oh, no,
with.
I've gotten a lot of those, but believe me. Yeah. Great story. I'll tell it quickly. He was, his son played up at Brooks School. Yeah. The game was at Brooks. His son went to school in Weston. It'll hit me, the school. I knew he was coming. It was 2007, the undefeated season. Okay. So he and I were... he said, I'd known I found out he was coming. I could get him for an interview after the game. So he was there with his son. We had a photographer. We took pictures and whatnot. And then everyone leaves, and it's just he and I on the football field. So there's, 1,000 people there. And he got bothered a little bit at the game. In fact, I sat with him. He said, hey, come sit with me, because he didn't want people to bother him. Yeah. But they still did. So he, hugs his son. They take some pictures, and everyone leaves. So it's he and I. And they were 6-0, 7-0 at the time. They were good. And I said, the one concern do you have? You don't really have a good running game. Your running game, you're in New England. Weather could be a concern. And he sort of got upset with that question. And so we're in the middle of a field. And when he gets upset, he starts getting quiet. So we're in a field where if he just screamed, no one would have heard it. And then he's whispering, and I go, what? And he wasn't happy with the question. He goes, yeah, we can run the ball if we have to. And so I'm going, what? And I'm literally going right next to him in the middle of, again, he could scream, he could hit cymbals, no one would hear anything. That's how everyone had left. Yeah. So he's a different. My point is, he's a different cat. People love him though. He's witty. He's a different guy.
Mostly been good to you?
No, he's mostly been good. And I don't. Usually those press conferences, when you're with him, I know I'm not going to get anything. So you have to really have a question. If you ask about the 86 Giants, he'll go on for an hour.
20 minutes.
Yeah, and he'll give you 3,000 words. It's like the second coming.
Well, he easily could have said, we got Randy Moss. We're not going to be doing too much running the ball here, right?
Yeah, well, but the thing
turned out not to be true.
Well, my point was, though, the weather could be better. It never did. They survived. They had a couple of tough playoff games, by the way, that year. With San Diego, and then Jacksonville. I think none of them were whatever. The point was, it could snow or the cold, and he can't throw, and the wind. And it didn't matter. They played inside and still lost to the Giants later.
Toughest loss in this crazy run, you think?
That hit us. That hit like a sledgehammer. And so interesting story. We had a big coffee table book that we were preparing. I realized after 8 games, I said to the publisher, I said, I got to go to these games, and we got to write stories. The more we do, and we could do a week by week, and we came up with this big coffee book, because it looked like they're going to go undefeated. Now, they had killed the first 6 or 7. It got a little less as the season went on, but I brought a photographer with me to the last 8 games, home or away, and then the playoffs, same thing. And then during the game, Moss scores that touchdown to go ahead, and it's like, because we have this book ready to be printed. So the game ends, I'm throwing a story in, and then this book is going to be printed within 5 days. And it's a probably like maybe 80, 100 pages, color photos with my columns of all the games.
Oh, what a cool idea.
Probably going to get a nice little bonus. And lo and behold, and I got a great story. Ron Jaworski, who I went down to NFL Films during the year, became friendly with, did a story on him looking at Brady versus Manning. And so he wrote a postscript, but he said, they better win. You better get rid of this column if they lose. And they lost. Oh, wow. So this book doesn't get printed. Wow. And so that was a hit.
Do you have a copy?
No. I think it's still sitting there, like in some kind of form on a computer or something. That
could be a collector's item.
Yeah, it would be 19-0 perfection. And so the best story of that Super Bowl, I'm coming down the elevator. I was there late because it was right on deadline. And I get in the elevator. All the media had already gone downstairs. I got in, and it's Peyton Manning and his wife and me. We're going down the elevator. So I look at him and say, I go, that was the greatest, just so you know, that was the greatest play in Super Bowl history. Yeah. And he looks up in the air. He goes, you're right. You're right.
The helmet catch, of course.
Yes, the ridiculous. Yeah. It's he probably should have been in the grass. But
Rodney Harrison still having nightmares about it, Mike.
So we get on the elevator, and I go, hey, can I talk to you for a second? You sure? So I talk about Brady, and he was great. And all of a sudden, 40 reporters saw us, and they run in and they interview him.
Oh, yeah.
And it's funny, as I walk away, he goes, I just want to tell you guys something. That's the greatest play in Super Bowl history.
You're like, that's my line.
I never got credit. USA Today ran this headline, the greatest play ever by Peyton Manning. And so that was a funny story.
That's good. Peyton was first only time to interview him, or did you get a few?
Oh, no. I got him a couple times.
Yeah.
Great guy.
Yeah.
Way easier to interview than Brady. Brady's a little untouchable, little different.
Yeah.
And, the commercial guy you see Peyton. Now, look, you also hear war stories about Peyton. You don't become that guy unless you're a little bit of a, you're
Fiery,
you're not all fun loving. You got this tough, but I will say I got him 6 or 7 times alone, and he knew who I was. Remember me? Oh, you're the Patriot guy, Bill, right? Great memory, and I liked him a lot. And Brady's a little different. In fact, I know Brady's father I know Brady's father much better than I know Tom individually. Yeah. Everything with Tom is professional, and it's been professional since day one.
I've always had the feeling, and I've pretty much grown up through the Brady era here and had all these spoiled years. It's always struck me that Brady maybe didn't even quite see this coming. I mean, who could see greatest of all time coming? You always hope to be have a great career, but I mean, this is, whatever, 7th round, back up at Michigan. I feel like
6th round, 199.
There you go.
Yeah.
Good for you. But I've always kind of felt like this probably shocks him at some point. There's probably a part of him that's in this limelight, looking back, married to the supermodel. How did we get here?
You know what? It's interesting. I don't think it is, because
really, yeah.
he's one of the most driven human beings I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And now the irony is, and I said this, I've become friendly with Dan Orlovsky, ESPN, great guy, old quarterback, right? UConn. Yeah. And I honestly think, go back and look at the tapes from Michigan. He was great. Yeah. Everyone was worried about his flabby looking body. He was slow as molasses. He ran the worst shuttle and the worst 60-yard dash in the history of the combine. Right. But he made plays. And go back to the last game he played against Alabama, 2 touchdowns in the last 4 minutes, and great plays in the back of the end zone, 3rd and 12, just like he's done.
Yeah.
I mean, the best thing about Brady is, he's been great. He moves the chains. Think of how many times he's been 3rd and 10, 4th and 10 in a playoff game, and not only got the first down, but they won that game.
Yeah.
It's happened way more than any other quarterback it had ever happened. And so, in my opinion, I think and you go back to, he won the 3 Super Bowls early, then has the 2007 season. So from then he's saying, no, I'm going to be the greatest.
Yeah.
Now, did he know that in year 1 or 2? Obviously not, but he's a confident young man. And he's been that way since I've known him. And,
you mentioned the quirkiness of him, at least from a, public press conference sort of thing. I think we all kind of see that. Not quite as natural as Peyton when it comes to, he's not going to be doing the Monday Night Football.
He's very guarded. He's always been guarded.
Yeah, you almost have to be in that inner circle if you really want it. But really, if you really look at it, though, it is pretty impressive to be in this spot, in this city, #1 athlete for all these years. He really hasn't done anything wrong. I mean, you throw in, I guess if you want to say deflating,
no,
it's a scandal,
I'm not even going to throw that in.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty. He's kept a pretty clean sheet, as they say.
Well, he's got a big family, strong family. I mean, his dad was sort of helicopter dad.
Yeah.
They had one son, 3 daughters. He was the youngest, and he was a very good athlete. But the great story is, he didn't start his freshman on the freshman football team. He was the backup quarterback.
Yeah.
And the best part is they were 0-10, and he was the backup. And he came alive as a sophomore. But no, I see that's the one thing. But I think when you have a kid or a young man who doesn't get all of the fame, and they see other people get it, and it says like, what about me? And I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you. And he's been like that from day one. People say, why is he back in the game in the 4th quarter? They're up 35-7. Yeah. Brady doesn't want to give a snap away to someone. He's worried someone's just like he did. He took Drew Bledsoe's job. And I think he's always thought about that. And all the power to him. Obviously now we're talking Tom Brady. It's a little different story right now. But in my mind, the greatest competitor, greatest quarterback that ever lived, period. I don't want to get into football players. I think Ray Lewis is most under. I think Ray Lewis, he was a linebacker who won 2 Super Bowls. No one else. Without Ray Lewis, they don't not win. He won 2 Super Bowls.
Yeah.
Quarterbacks don't even do that. There's a lot of guys that have won. I mean, Aaron Rodgers has won 1. Ray Lewis, because of his play, because of his leadership. I mean, he's crazy. He says some of the things he says are crazy, but special. I think one of the greatest football players that ever lived.
Absolutely. And again, we're joined here by Bill Burt, sports editor of the Eagle Tribune. I did promise I was going to go back to this real quickly. Miracle on Ice. One of the greatest sporting events to ever.
So look, the movie. The movie's not probably. All movies are. It's a little sappy.
Yep.
A little work in some Hollywood angles to make it great. But in my opinion, the irony was, remember, that game was taped. That was not on live. So we can all say we remember where we were. Well,
That's the thing. I don't remember. So it's to hear that. I remember the first time I heard that. Wait, the nation didn't watch that live?
No.
Are you kidding me? What?
No, when I grew up, games in the West Coast in hockey weren't shown till the next day.
Right.
So it was, look, you guys, you don't even know. I have a son that's 23.
Yeah.
And, we've talked about Brady, and he's like, oh, Brady's never leaving. I go, guys, this is over. This is like going to end, and you're going to live like a normal human being like I did.
Yeah.
Like 6-10. No way. They will never be 6-10.
Yeah.
That's what.
Well, he's 23. I at least had to pay some dues with like the Aaron Boone home run, and he's real spoiled at 23.
Yes.
Man.
But you were a little tyke even
I'm
then.
not complaining, yes.
So yeah, it's a for what my point with the Patriots is, and this is where it's interesting. Where does it go from here? I think it's over. I think Brady's done. I think Belichick would rather Brady be done. When I say that, I get hate mail. I get on Twitter. I asked a question.
It's a passionate fan base.
So I asked, would you trade? Would you rather have Jimmy Garoppolo and give back the Super Bowl win, the last Super Bowl win? Now, obviously that it would. But could maybe Jimmy G have won that Super Bowl last year? He arguably could have won, but people get ticked off now. They're very protective of Tom, which they weren't in the middle of this year. So everyone's worried. A lot of people are worried, like my son, that Brady's leaving. So very, very protective. And I'm just telling you what I think. I think if Belichick was going to coach 2 years, I think Brady's back. Ride Brady out in the sunset. If Brady leaves, it's because Belichick didn't want him back, and Belichick's going to be here for about 8 more years. So we're going to go to 75. Belichick's 68, turned 69, I think, or turned 68 in April.
Okay.
He's not done.
Yeah, he seems like he's got maybe a handful left.
His batteries, no, they're charged.
Yeah,
he's
really?
not. He's the same guy, man. He's the same guy that was here in 2000.
Winning's got to help that. Coaching's a tough gig, but winning, I'm sure, helps.
See, but I don't, it's hard. Like what him and Brady have done has never been done.
Yeah.
And not that they've won for 20 years. They've been together for 20 years. It's hard for two, let's go, alpha dog males.
Yeah.
And, I will say Belichick's in charge. There's no question about that. But Brady has got his own camp, and he's I think that's what's happening. Brady wants to be treated like he's the greatest, which he is. But Belichick is never going to say, all right, we'll give you $35 million. Plus, we got that cap of 13. So we'll go a cap of 40. No, he's not doing it.
Yeah.
Not happening. This is Belichick's creation, quote unquote. And he could not have done this without Brady. Could he have stolen a couple of Super Bowls? Probably. And they would be very good. They'd be the most consistent team. But him and Brady, that's a rare marriage. I'm shocked that it lasted this long.
Yeah.
But both hate losing, and I think, and they don't like it. People, you gotta understand. And I've said this before. If you're friends with Tom Brady, you call him Tommy.
Yeah.
And Belichick calls him Tom. And they don't have beers. They don't go out for dinner. Yeah. I would just assume they would. Like if I'm the head coach. And the quarterback, who I respect, but maybe that's why Belichick who is. He does not get too close. It's not personal. Would he get rid of Brady after all? You damn straight he would.
Yeah.
You damn straight he would.
Yeah, I guess you're right. We got a couple minutes. I want to rapid fire. Can we do a couple quick questions? I like to end with this sometimes. Again, we got Bill Burt, nice enough to join us. First time on the show, sports editor at the Eagle Tribune. This has been great. We flew by here, so that usually tells you whenever I blow through the commercial break, I always say it's just because I'm enjoying it. So that's good. Let's do a couple rapid fire. So you gave us favorite sport, baseball.
Yep.
Favorite player to cover over your career?
Larry Bird. I caught the end of Larry Bird's career. One of my, cover. I don't know if that's the right word. He was my favorite athlete. I was in high school and college when he came out. I was enamored with Sundays at noon, Sixers. Like the team. You asked me, it's the Yankees. North Quincy. I was in Quincy. I hated North Quincy.
Yeah.
Hated UMass Lowell because Merrimack played them in hockey.
Yep.
Man, did I hate the Philadelphia 76ers. I hated the Lakers, but I hated the Sixers.
Philly,
that to me was one of the best rivalries ever in sports.
Okay.
Celtics Sixers.
There you go. What's the did you gave his favorite coach, Parcells? Who's the toughest player to cover? Who gave you the hardest time?
No, a lot of Patriots. Bruce Armstrong, Patriot.
Bruce Armstrong,
yeah,
right.
lineman. And he ended up being a good guy. Max Lane, local guy.
Yeah.
You've probably had him in here 10 times, or have you?
I have not actually, but I know he's around. Yeah.
Okay, great. A big Max Lane fan. He lives in Newburyport.
Yeah.
So Max, Max was tough, and now I've become friendly with him, and he's like, I go, you are such a fraud, you wouldn't. But he said everyone was afraid of Bruce Armstrong, and Bruce Armstrong would say, nope, nobody's talking. Bruce had been there because he'd been through 2 other regimes before Belichick got there, and before Parcells. So he was a tough cookie to crack. And I ended up seeing him 10 years later in Florida. I have 2 brothers that live in Florida. I saw him on the golf course. Couldn't have been nicer. Was really tough to cover.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. Favorite team to cover over the years?
Favorite team to cover? This 2007 Celtics were great.
Yep.
I probably though it's going to be one of the. I'm going to tell you what it was. It was the 1993 Patriots.
Oh, interesting.
Year before they turned it around. So it was 5-11. They won or 6-10. They won their last 4 or 5 games in a row. Parcells, they were thinking of moving. That team was a ball. Bledsoe had sort of come. He didn't play the first couple of games, then came in. Seacules got hurt. I don't know what Parcells is doing with Seacules, but Bledsoe comes in, has that big win over Minnesota. They were down 21-0. They win in overtime. Kevin Turner in the back of the end zone.
Okay, yeah.
So I remember that like it was yesterday. That team was a ball, and
Really?
it's funny. I'll never forget what Rick Pitino said. When he took over as Celtics. No, he didn't really live up to what he said, but he said it's not the winning that's great, it's the journey.
Yeah.
And it hit me when he said that. The Patriots getting better in the early 1990s with Parcells was fun.
Yeah.
Because they went from being the laughing stock up and down. They had a couple of great years, went to a Super Bowl, but they were a laughing stock. They were the Bengals.
Yeah.
And they became first class. And Kraft had a lot to do with that, probably more than we've really given him credit for.
Anniversary of him getting the team today.
Which is right. Yeah. I think it's how many years? It was. So it was 1994, so 26 years. 26, sorry. Yeah. And I'm a big fan of what Kraft did, yeah. And but my point is, the journey it was the journey, and I go to these games and I lay into the fans in the club seats. They don't come out in the cold, and I'm in a nice warm press box eating food and eating chowder with hot sauce, and they're all inside doing the same thing. And I don't think fans should do that.
Yeah.
And I know they probably were given the seats. They're $600 seats, and it's really warm inside. It's toasty, so I do resent that. I look at Kansas City. I was at the AFC Championship last year in Kansas City. Those fans are fans. They deserve a Super Bowl team.
Should be a good one.
And so it's the journey. And in New England, we haven't really. If you're 23 years old, you don't really understand journeys right now.
No, I hear you. Spoiled as can be. That actually place. I always say Gillette's not really built to have that like big noise corridor. It's not Seattle where it seems to keep all the sound.
It's open a little bit.
Yeah.
There's guardrail. There's big girders.
It's nice and everything.
But it's nice as you know what? It's spacious.
Spacious. Yeah.
The other place was brutal. It was a high school stadium. Yeah. It took 20 minutes to get out because there was only one lane for one fat guy to get through, and you had to wait. Even if you're in the media, it was
actual
hard.
Stadium seating too, right?
Yeah, it was benches.
Benches. That's what I mean.
And so it's. Look, it's a good stadium. There's so many great stadiums right now in all sports that I'm.
What's your favorite one? On that note, there's another one for you.
So I'm going to tell you what. One of my favorites was a minor league stadium. They just built it in Hartford. The Hartford Yard Goats play there.
What a theme song they got!
It's great. And that's the Rockies team, their AA team. But I really love Cleveland. I love Denver. Yankee Stadium's great. New Yankee Stadium is great. Fenway, it's old.
Yeah.
It's got a lot going on, but it's tough. There's not a lot of room to move around. I like room. So
Yeah.
the older I get, the more room
If you
I
like
want.
room, you don't want like Fenway.
And that's what happens. I'm like I said, the older I get, the more impatient I get, and I like warm weather. But Denver and Cleveland, two of my favorite stadiums.
Interesting. All right. I haven't been to either one of those. I've been to a lot of them. I haven't done those two, so I'll make sure to do it. Final 30 seconds. Bill Burt, thank you again. This has been a pleasure. The advice for we get a lot of high school kids on this show, a lot of athletes who I'm sure look at this industry. What's your advice to the young guy that wants to be a journalist?
You got to commit.
Young guy or girl?
You got to commit. You got to commit to 6 or 7 years of not doing great. Maybe that's a little long. Maybe it's 3 or 4. But it's about loving it, working harder than everyone else. And I say the most important word in our business, I would say probably, I'd give this advice to others too, is patience. You got to have patience. It's hard when you see kids in your class maybe driving Beamers, making $120,000. You can't compare yourselves to them. A lot of them want your job.
Yeah.
What you got to do though is you got to realize, can I be great in this business? There's a lot of average people, and if you want to be average, there's a lot of openings, and you can have a long career. And if you want to be great, you want to be very good, you want to be competitive, it's also a great business, and it's a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Bill Burt, appreciate it, man. That was a blast.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming
Appreciate
on.
it.
All right, Bill Burt of the Eagle Tribune. My name's Drew Moholland. We'll be back here Thursday, same time, same place. Not going to give away the guest at this point because I'm not 100% sure who it is yet, but we'll see you Thursday. Thanks for tuning in. Lily Doucette producing. Thank you, Lily. We'll see you next time on Joppa Afternoon Drive.